Donald Trump held a surprise press conference, as it was coined, in Palm Beach, Florida at Mar-a-Lago. I want to check in on a few of the clips just as the last days are playing out. We have 1 week from today, the election will take place, and within some period of time, we don't know exactly how long, but we'll get results on such a crucial election. And so Trump is ramping up his rhetoric to be as dangerous and in many cases disgusting as possible, hoping fear can be the thing that wins this election. And before looking at clips relevant to that point, let's start with this one that's a little bit more lighthearted, him saying something that you really, you would have a tough time finding something more absurd than the statement you're going to hear here. While you're listening, please make sure you've clicked that subscribe button. We are attempting to get to 1 million subscribers by Election Day, and it's quite the hefty goal. Help us get there if you're not subscribed by clicking that subscribe button. Thank you to everyone who has done it already.
Destruction of our economy. Our economy is not, this is just, it's like a fake economy. Some of the best people on Wall Street are saying the economy is only good because they think, I don't want to say this because other people have said it. It's not me saying it, but they think Trump is going to get elected. That's the only reason our economy is good. That's the only reason the stock market is up.
He admits there that the economy is quote unquote good. But he tries to argue. Think about how desperate you have to be when so much of your argument revolved around you blaming pandemic era issues, many of which you exacerbated on your way out, on Biden-Harris, when your whole economic argument was pointing to the real pain caused by that, pointing to the real issues that Biden-Harris had to inherit and deal with, and blaming it on them, and then they solve them. What do you do then? Think about how desperate you have to be to go, the economy is good, but it's because of me. How on earth you hear sometimes Trump, for example, take credit for an economy that he inherited from former President Barack Obama. That's one thing. But it's easier for people to get their head around because it's, well, I mean, he was president. And yeah, I guess he didn't really do the stuff that led to the economy that he was president overseeing, but he was still president when certain metrics were where they were before he mismanaged that pandemic. That's a little bit easier for me to understand how people get misinformed on. It's a whole nother thing to say the economy is good before you get into office because people think you're going to get into office. Show me one economist of any credibility that is able to make a fact-based argument about that. That is so absurd. Then, a big purpose of this press conference was discussing immigration, or more specifically, taking individuals who have heartbreaking stories about losing family members of theirs. And in these cases, the perpetrators were undocumented immigrants. And so then Trump is attempting, as harsh as this language is, we can admit this to be the case, attempting to exploit these stories to then bolster his fear-mongering, not connected to policy to help their lives, but instead all about the politics of freaking out people.
Was found raped, tied up and strangled to death with a telephone cord in her home. Kayla's murderer was an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member, among the most vicious gangs anywhere in the world.
So a few things on that. I sympathize a lot with the woman on stage who told her story, and she is expressing her feelings about this, and she does believe that a political point needs to be made. And so that's there. In addressing Trump, I think it's important that we identify what he's doing. Jules Morgan posted about some of the clips we're going to be watching, this man is vile and a pathological liar. He's once again using people's grief as a prop. Every time he blames her for what's happening at the border, he should be asked, why did he tank the border security bill written by Republicans? Something we talked a lot about. Or why have Republicans refused to engage just throughout the whole presidency of Biden-Harris? Day one, they came in, proposed immigration reform items. There on out, there was just no interest until some Republicans got on board with doing a border security bill. They wrote it. Then other Republicans said no because Trump told them to. So if you're just completely unwilling to engage on solutions, it is really dishonest to fearmonger so much about the problems. And this reminds me a lot of when Fox News, to further their narrative that crime is going up, that people are less safe, they'll play these videos of crimes being committed. Look how unsafe this city is, because look at some video from the subway where something terrible happened. This is Joe Biden's America. And what we've talked about before is, as heartbreaking and real as those individual stories are, it's always the case that you can find those stories, and then if your morality fails so much, exploit them, as Trump will do, to push forward such a hateful and anti-solution set of fear-mongering devices. And that's what he's doing. That's what Fox News does. They don't contextualize those videos with, hey, by the way, you're actually safer based on crime data than you were any time under Trump. Crime has been plummeting under Biden-Harris. Instead, they just discuss the individual stories and then point at Biden-Harris. But if you're going to blame them for the individual stories, don't you have to also give them credit for the broader trends? So then on this topic specifically, it is true that even though, of course, we don't want people entering the country illegally, we want lawful immigration. I wish Republicans would be more on board with trying to celebrate and promote lawful immigration. But some percentage, while it happens to be a much smaller percentage than native-born Americans, but some percentage will end up being criminals. And those people should be top of the list to be deported, which is how we've structured it, and it should be that way. And then horrible instances like this have taken place when Trump was president as well, and you didn't see Democrats using those stories to then build a narrative against Trump, because there used to be some understanding that that was crossing the line, especially whenever you're the one who's encouraging Congress to block solutions. And then to build onto all of it, as you're refusing to talk about solutions, only fear-mongering about problems, using people's heartbreaking stories, misleading people on the broader context of a given subject, the broader trends, you then add to it all that this becomes the justification for a MAGA movement that's now just fear-mongering and opposing just almost all lawful immigration, it seems. Now we hear them going crazy about individuals in Springfield who have legal status, saying they've destroyed the town, and all the lies about what's going on there. And in future clips, you'll see lies about Colorado. And so you see how it spirals so much out of control. But I think sometimes we don't engage thoughtfully with these moments because the devastating and heartbreaking story that's being told feels like something we shouldn't then make a political point around. But if Trump's going to politicize these things and exploit these things, we have to talk about the truth on them. Then we go further into this press conference, just doing everything he can to scare the you-know-what out of his followers so they vote for him. Terrify the crowd instead of putting forward policy solutions.
He's running on a campaign of demoralization and really a campaign of destruction. But really, perhaps more than anything else, it's a campaign of hate. It's a campaign of absolute hate. And, you know, I said yesterday that she's a vessel, and she is a vessel. It's a very big, powerful party with smart people. I have to be smart. But it's vicious, they're vicious, and they're perhaps even trying to destroy our country. Because who would want...
onto his points that we've heard many times. Aaron Rupar responded to that clip saying, so much for toning down the rhetoric. Toning down the rhetoric is a two-way street, Republicans. Lying about the elections, by the way, also not toning down rhetoric.
It's going very well. There are some bad spots in Pennsylvania where some serious things have been caught or in the process of being caught, but the election itself is going very well.
Seems to be the case. I honestly don't know what he's referring to there on all of these things. There's either tiny little instance that gets distorted or a complete fabrication or a conspiracy theory online or and I'm bracing. We're going to be working very hard in between the election and inauguration, especially if Vice President Harris wins, but and inevitably Trump lies about it. We're going to be working to quickly sort of a rapid response to the lies that are going to flood out. But it's just difficult because where these come from, people don't just want to know that a conspiracy theory or a statement is a lie or misleading. They want to know where it came from and to track all those things down. This came from one person, a video of someone who put a ballot into a ballot box and happened to be wearing a mask. And so that person we actually have tracked down, learned that they have a medical thing that necessitates them to wear a mask all the time. So there's nothing suspicious, right? All those types of things you have to track down. This security video isn't actually it isn't actually suspicious. It's just someone putting a box on a table, which they're supposed to be doing at this particular moment. And I want to be good at doing that because I think some of the conspiracy theories ran wild after the 2020 election because the online and media infrastructure wasn't in place to fact check them quickly. So we're going to try to do that quickly, but we're going to be hearing a lot of that. Oh, there's something fishy going on here, something fishy going on there, so that if Trump loses, he can say, see, I was telling you, and then just more of the fear mongering.
Aurora probably is an even worse situation because you have the meanest, worst gang from Venezuela in the world, probably maybe as bad or worse than MS-13. And they've literally taken over the town. They've taken over large sections of the town. They've gone into the real estate business. They've taken over apartment complex. They took over a number of complexes where the people are paying them rent. They've become the landlord, isn't that?
It's crazy when people who are elected officials locally, who are face to face with the very towns and communities that Trump will fearmonger about, screaming to Trump, please stop. Please stop. You're not correct. Please stop. And he'll continue. And I want to circle back to, in a country this size, there is just a real power for people that comes of, I have someone in my life who always reminds me that for so many people, even when I'm making my points, it's important to connect it to individual stories. Stories are so much more powerful than stats for most people, even though the stats so often tell a more comprehensive story. And so what Trump's able to do here is completely obfuscate, ignore, and distract from the stats or the broader trends or the broader successes or benefits to people's lives that have come of Biden, Harris, or whatever, because of how powerful for most people to their heart stories are. And sometimes the way that people are being connected with is just through fear, and it's a powerful thing. So when people ask me, how could Trump win this? If he wins it, how could it be? And hopefully he won't, and we'll never have to engage with that. But if he were to, it's going to be because of a media landscape that's been set up, because of the incentive structures that have been developed, where people have slowly been wanting more and more the sort of media equivalent of junk food, and give me what I want. And as much as people don't think this is what they want, a lot of people are hungry and crave fear, the fear junk food. And so the Fox News model that then a lot of other outlets have replicated has just become a factory for that then does best if it just coalesces around all of Trump's lies instead of deciphering what's correct and what's not and what's just go 100% in on Trump. He's playing into that as well. And you have a captured audience of people who won't turn off the television because if they did, they might miss the next vicious murder. And all of it serves Trump. And we have millions of people out there, some or so many, who it's not about their values being horrible, but just the source of their information being horrible. So I guess regardless of what happens, I hope that we don't lose hope in our ability to eventually undo that. Let me know what you thought. I almost went to the side camera, but I think Jaden told me it's off, so I'm going to stay here. Let me know what you thought in the comments. And get the bonus show by clicking that join button below.